All right, this is for Ernest Van Aken. Aken. Sorry if I murdered that. Okay, so basically, the first thing I noticed right off the bat, which is some of what the other people were saying, was your perspective. You need to get that down first, and so you can probably bastardize it enough to, um, see if you look here, your general perspective comes here, but then this problem is this comes up here and it goes like so. So if that's the case, I'll just undo these last two. If that's the case, then you want to basically maintain um, that vertical perspective. So I'm just kind of tweaking this a little bit. Now, if the shape is different, what you want to do is, and this is probably going to be something like this. But what you want to do if the shape is different is you probably can warp it, and we'll play with that a little bit. But the other aspect too is then this stuff is a little bit off too, um, and it should be basically adjusted something like that. Now I'm just making up lines here. So this would be a completely different perspective, and you need to fix this. The next thing is, and also this wouldn't be as adjusted, it would be less. Also, the next thing you wanted to pay attention to is um, depth of field. And so the problem with your depth of field is you've got what looks to be like a very bright light coming in from this side here. And we're just going to, so you're getting a bright light coming in from this side now, which is covering the faces of this and this one here. So there's logically, unless this piece is at a 45, so basically if these are flat, this is flat, the light would be coming in from this direction. So unless this is a 45, this bunker part here is a 45, you would still get light in there. So it really depends on how um, that light is actually working. So if it's like this, then that changes your light source, and you need to put light on this edge here. All right, so that's another issue that I would kind of address. The next thing is the uh, you've got this um, part here, but what you've got is no real shadow. So your shadow would actually come down like this, and then it would have um, I don't know, I'm just kind of fudging this in here, but it would come in like this because of the bright light. So you'd actually get very strong shadows, especially close to it. Not 100% strong, but stuff like this now looks a lot more in front of you. Um, and then of course you can detail this even further just by you know putting in ridges like that, and that'll actually give you the look that it's up and down. Same thing over here. You probably want to put some sort of especially this being close, you probably want some sort of a harder shadow here, and then even darkening this and putting in like shadows like this, um, and so on and so forth. So those are things that you really want to pay attention to. Um, and I think when you've got the idea down, but what I would want to say is, what is your focal point? That's something you have to really kind of ask yourself a lot of times, um, on what your focal point is. Right now, my focal point is dead center because the the this is so saturated and so in my face. That's my focal point right there. And is that what you want me to look at as a viewer? You need to ask yourself things like that. Now, the other thing too is when you start getting in here, like I see what you've done is I see what you've done here is you've hand drawn this in here, and honestly, that's not the way to do it. At this point in time, you know, especially since this is so far back, you want to pick some of your other colors, and you want to just kind of, you know, get your idea in there, and you can even grab in pieces like that, you know, and it's more or less a whatever you want to call it. It's more or less a visual reference. And honestly, if you're going to put that little piece in there, I would just, you know, put a guard here and make it very faint. You almost want to paint it and then just a little bit covered it up. So things like that. And those are things that you really want to kind of look at. Um, you know, be aware of your shadows, be aware where everything's kind of pointing to. You know, especially since if you want to, you know, if this is your focus, then your focus at this point should be pretty light. And I'm just going to kind of overlay, maybe we'll do a soft light. So at this point, you know, you want to add in the brights like this. And again, go back in the darks and, you know, give me that dimensional form. Like you've got the form dimension here in the blocks, but you don't have it in this little piece here. And so, you know, even just, you know, getting highlights in there and blending that, and this would be in lights. So really pay attention to that. You know, this is actually start reflecting some light up here. Whereas on the bottom here, you would probably be darkening this, and that's going to pop out, you know, different parts. So, you know, pay attention to what you want your focus to be. I would almost tell you to watch your rule of thirds, and if you basically take one of these and move, it'll give you a grid as long as you have your grid line, your rule of thirds grid here. You can also do a golden ratio, or you can do a golden spiral, which that will tell you kind of where you want things to look. And if that's the case, you just kind of want to create a focal point here. You know, so now my focal point is here, and then, you know, I can you know, separate this and put that in there. And then at this point, I would put maybe a little guy in there, and it's, you know, it doesn't have to be much, but give the idea that this guy is walking in here, and I'm doing this nothing but shadows. You know, give this idea that this guy is walking in here. So get in the right layer here. You know, and this now becomes a little bit more interesting. You know, having a guy there, the focal point is a little bit better, that type of thing. So it's just one thing that you can do there to kind of adjust your focal area. Um, and I would say, you know, that's it. Just start blending in your scenery, your sand dunes and stuff like that in a little bit more. You know, something might be interesting you want to do is just add in the multiply layer, just add a little bit, you know, some tracks here like this, that kind of up and around, and then you can actually put like a vehicle's been traveling, like a road and stuff like that. And then here you can go in and just add in these little paths, and that way you've got the idea that something's been going on there, and it's leading the eye to individual things now. So those are things that you want to do. The other thing too is you've got a nice silhouette here. I would almost tell you to take that and do the same thing here, and, you know, block out, even if you just block out simple a little bit more, it draws the eye now. I'm looking around a little bit more. Um, so those are things that I would adjust and fix. You know, where's your eye looking? And I think that's kind of a better idea. Like I said, just kind of flesh out things a little bit more, fix your perspective, and play with your silhouettes and composition. All right.